Everyone knows her face. Everyone talks about her name. But almost no one really understands why Sydney Sweeney has become one of the most obsessed over actresses in America right now. Scroll through social media and you'll see it instantly. Clips, memes, headlines, debates. Some people call her Hollywood's new golden girl. Others say she's overrated, overhyped, or famous for the wrong reasons. But here's the truth most people miss. Sydney Sweeney didn't wake up one day and magically become famous. Before the red carpets, before the viral interviews, before Euphoria changed everything, she was nearly broke, working non-stop, auditioning endlessly, and quietly fighting a Hollywood system that wasn't built to make it easy for someone like her. This isn't just the story of an actress. It's the story of modern fame, where talent, beauty, money, and internet obsession collide. Why does the internet fixate on her every move? Why is her talent constantly questioned? And why did her honest comments about money shock an entire industry? Because Sydney Sweeney represents something bigger than herself. She's a mirror reflecting how Hollywood creates stars, how audiences consume them, and how quickly admiration can turn into pressure. In this video, we're not just talking about movies or fame. We're breaking down the obsession. The controversies, the truth behind the headlines, and by the end, you might realize something uncomfortable. This obsession says less about Sydney Sweeney and much more about us. Before Hollywood knew her name, Sydney Sweeney was just another determined kid with an impossible dream. She didn't grow up in Los Angeles. She wasn't born into fame, and she definitely wasn't surrounded by powerful industry connections. Sydney Sweeney was raised in a small town in Washington state, far removed from casting offices, red carpets, and movie premieres. Her family lived a normal, middle-class life. There were no agents at the dinner table, no famous friends opening doors, just parents, school, and a young girl who knew, very early on, that she wanted to act. But wanting to act in America doesn't mean you get to act. When Sydney told her parents she wanted to pursue acting, they didn't say yes immediately. Instead, she did something unusual, especially for a kid. She put together a full presentation explaining why acting could be a real career, how she would pursue it, and what sacrifices it would require. That moment alone tells you something important. This wasn't a fantasy, it was a plan. Eventually, her family made a decision that would change everything. They uprooted their lives and moved to Los Angeles so Sydney could chase auditions. For most families, that kind of move is terrifying. It's expensive, it's risky, and in Hollywood it usually ends in disappointment, and disappointment came quickly. Sydney started auditioning constantly, commercials, TV shows, background roles. Most of the time the answer was silence, sometimes rejection. Sometimes being told she was a not quite right, too young, too normal, not memorable enough. She landed small roles, blink and you miss it appearances in shows like Criminal Minds, Grey's Anatomy, and 90,210. Roles that paid little, offered no security, and came with no guarantee of what came next. Meanwhile, the financial pressure was real. Acting in Hollywood is expensive, especially when you're not famous. Classes, headshots, travel, time off school. Sydney has spoken openly about how hard those years were and how close her family came to running out of money. There were moments when quitting would have made sense, but instead of chasing instant fame, Sydney focused on something most young actors ignore: craft. She studied scripts obsessively, built character books for auditions, treated even the smallest role like it mattered, because to her, it did. For years, she worked without recognition. No magazine covers, no fan base, no safety net, just persistence. This was the version of Sydney Sweeney the internet never saw. Unknown, uncelebrated, unprotected. And that's exactly why what came next would shock Hollywood. For years, Sydney Sweeney had done everything right and still remained invisible. Then Euphoria happened. When HBO's announced Euphoria, it didn't look like just another teen drama. From the beginning, the show felt different, darker, rawer, uncomfortable. It promised to show American youth without filters, addiction, sex, trauma, and identity, the things most shows were afraid to touch. Sydney Sweeney was cast as Cassie Howard. At first, Cassie didn't seem like the breakout role. She wasn't the loudest character. She wasn't the most rebellious. She wasn't written as the show's a power centre, but that would change, fast. Cassie was emotionally exposed in a way most TV characters aren't. Vulnerable, insecure, desperate to be loved. And Sydney didn't play her safely. She leaned into the discomfort, the emotional breakdowns, the quiet moments where pain wasn't shouted, it was felt. Ah, no. American audiences noticed immediately. Cassie became one of the most talked about characters on television. Her scenes didn't just trend, they sparked debate. Viewers argued about her choices, her relationship. And that's when something important happened. Sydney Sweeney stopped being another actress and became a cultural conversation. But fame came with a price. Almost overnight, Sydney's image was reduced to a single narrative. Instead of talking about her performance, much of the media fixated on her body, her appearance, and her sexuality. Clips were reposted out of context. Headlines ignored nuance. The internet did what it always does, simplified a complex character into something easy to consume. And yet, Sydney didn't disappear behind the noise. In season 2, her performance deepened. Cassie wasn't just emotional, she was unravelling. The breakdown scenes became some of the most intense moments in modern television. Critics praised her range. Directors noticed her discipline. Suddenly, Sydney wasn't just viral, she was respected. But even then, the conversation stayed complicated. In America, Euphoria became more than a TV show. It became a mirror of modern culture, and Sydney Sweeney was at the centre of it. Loved by fans, criticised by commentators, debated by strangers who had never met her. The irony was impossible to ignore. The role that made her famous also trapped her in public perception. Cassie's vulnerability blurred into Sydney's real life. People assumed they knew her, that they understood her, that her success came easily. It didn't. Behind the scenes, Sydney was working harder than ever, auditioning, producing, and deliberately choosing roles that proved she wasn't a one-character phenomenon. She understood something crucial about Hollywood. If you let the industry define you, it will never let you grow. Euphoria didn't just launch Sydney Sweeney into stardom. It placed her under a microscope. And once America started watching, it never stopped. After Euphoria, Sydney Sweeney's career wasn't just on the rise. It was under constant public scrutiny. The internet had discovered her, and the obsession began. In the modern age, fame doesn't wait for awards or box office numbers. It starts on social media in short clips, GIF, and memes. For Sydney, this meant that almost every expression, scene and interview became material for public consumption. Fans dissected her performances frame by frame, while strangers debated her choices on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. A single scene from Euphoria could rack up millions of views within hours. Some applauded her acting genius, and others reduced her to aesthetic or a hot or not threads. For many actors, this level of attention can be intoxicating. For Sydney, it was a mixed blessing. On one hand, she had reached a level of visibility that most young actors never achieved. Others countered that she had proven herself repeatedly, earning critical praise and even award nominations. The conversation spilled into TikTok and YouTube, creating videos titled, "Is Sydney Sweeney overhyped?" and "Can she act?" These videos racked up millions of views, each serving as a microcosm of society's obsession with judging women in entertainment. For Sydney, navigating this scrutiny required strategy. She became intentional with her roles, balancing highly visible projects with challenging character-driven parts that showcased depth. She took on films outside her usual type, like drama-heavy roles and psychologically complex characters, forcing critics and audiences alike to confront her skill. Slowly, perception began to shift. Fans and industry insiders started acknowledging the reality. Sydney Sweeney was more than a pretty face. She was a performer with range, intelligence, and resilience. But the debate never fully disappears. In America, fame and beauty often become inseparable in public perception, especially for young actresses. Sydney's experience highlights a larger cultural issue. Talent is constantly measured against appearance, and women are often trapped in that equation. Every interview, every public appearance, every role, no matter how challenging, risks being reduced to a good look. It's part of why the internet remains obsessed with Sydney Sweeney. Her story is not just about acting, it's about navigating the complexities of fame in a culture that constantly questions, judges, and obsesses over women. And as Sydney continues to grow as an actress, the question remains, can she define her own narrative, or will the conversation about looks and talent always follow her? By the time Sydney Sweeney became a household name, the glamorous side of Hollywood was undeniable. Red carpets, magazine covers, interviews, and social media adoration all painted a picture of success. But beneath the surface, fame comes with a cost, one that few people see and even fewer understand. Hollywood is an industry built on competition, timing, and perception. For young actors like Sydney, the pressure is relentless. Every audition, every role, every public appearance carries weight, not just professionally, but personally. A single misstep can be magnified online, turning into viral criticism or harsh headlines. And for women in particular, the stakes are even higher. Sydney has spoken candidly about this pressure, the expectation to look perfect, perform flawlessly, and maintain an image that pleases fans, the media, and studio executives all at once. Money, surprisingly, became part of the pressure too. Many assume that once you reach fame, financial security follows immediately. But early in her career, Sydney and her family faced real financial challenges. Even after Euphoria, the volatility of acting contracts meant that income wasn't guaranteed. She had to navigate pay gaps in Hollywood, a system where women, especially young actresses, often earn significantly less than their male counterparts. Sydney's openness about this issue resonated with fans, but also fueled conversations about the inequities in the entertainment industry. This combination of fame and financial scrutiny creates a psychological burden. Social media amplifies it, transforming every comment into potential criticism. Fans become judges, headlines become pressure points. The adoration that fuels celebrity status also reinforces a constant need to meet expectations. For Sydney, this meant learning to compartmentalize, to perform fully in front of the camera while managing the realities of the industry off-screen. What makes Sydney's journey notable is how she turned these pressures into motivation. She strategically selected roles that challenged her, diversified her portfolio, and cultivated a sense of independence by producing projects herself. She recognised early that relying solely on external validation from fans, social media or studios would only make the pressure unbearable. Instead, she aimed to define success on her own terms: consistent work, personal growth, and long-term sustainability in Hollywood. Yet the cost of fame remains tangible. Privacy is scarce. Public mistakes are immortalised online. Every decision is scrutinized. Money and opportunity may flow, but at the price of constant evaluation and intense mental strain. Sydney's experience highlights a larger truth about modern celebrity. Success in Hollywood is rarely just about talent or luck. It's about endurance, strategy, and the ability to withstand scrutiny in a world that watches every move. The lesson is clear. Fame can bring recognition, opportunity, and wealth, but it can also magnify insecurities, test resilience, and challenge personal identity. For Sydney Sweeney, navigating this landscape requires more than acting ability. It demands strength, awareness, and a refusal to let the industry define her entirely. And as her story unfolds, the audience begins to understand something crucial. Obsession, scrutiny, and pressure are the hidden sides of fame that define both the actress and the culture that consumes her. After the intensity of Euphoria and the media storm that followed, Sydney Sweeney faced a crucial question. Could she redefine herself beyond the roles that made her famous? For many actors, escaping typecasting is nearly impossible, especially when the public obsession is so strong. But Sydney approached this challenge with strategy, vision, and an understanding of the changing entertainment landscape. Her move into romantic comedies was more than a career choice. It was a calculated expansion. The genre offered her a chance to showcase a different side of her talent: charm, comedic timing, and versatility. Suddenly, audiences who had only known her as emotionally raw Cassie Howard saw her in a new light. Sydney's ability to pivot between genres demonstrated that her craft was not limited to dramatic, emotionally fraught roles. It also reminded Hollywood that she was not just a viral sensation. She was a multi-dimensional performer. But this transition was not without scrutiny. Critics questioned whether her fame from Euphoria gave her unfair leverage. Fans wondered if moving to rom-coms diluted her credibility as a serious actress. Social media reactions ranged from admiration to skepticism, and headlines framed her comeback as either a savvy reinvention or a risky gamble. Into saying, yet the move paid off. Sydney's performances in these lighter roles revealed her range and reinforced a crucial message. she controlled her narrative. This phase of her career also reflected a broader trend in Hollywood. Audiences today expect actors to be versatile, able to navigate drama, comedy, and even action. Sydney's deliberate choices showed an understanding of the modern entertainment ecosystem. She wasn't chasing viral moments or superficial attention. She was building a sustainable career path, diversifying her portfolio, and proving that she could withstand the pressures of fame while evolving creatively. Beyond acting, Sydney also embraced production opportunities, seeking roles behind the camera that allowed her to influence storytelling and representation. This decision highlighted a growing awareness among young Hollywood actors. Longevity comes not just from performance, but from ownership and creative control. By expanding into producing, she gained agency over her career and pushed back against an industry that often seeks to define actors by a single role or image. For US audiences, this chapter of Sydney's story is particularly compelling. It shows that fame is not a fixed endpoint, but a series of strategic decisions, reinvention, and calculated risks. It also underscores the reality that actors today must navigate public perception while continuously proving themselves. Sydney's rom-com comeback is a testament to resilience, ambition, and the ability to evolve under intense scrutiny. And perhaps most importantly, it signals that Sydney Sweeney is no longer just the itty girl from Euphoria. She is a rising force in Hollywood, one who is learning to shape her own story, expand her range, and remain relevant in an industry that never stops watching. By now, Sydney Sweeney was a household name. She had conquered Euphoria, proven her range in rom-coms, and begun taking creative control behind the camera. Yet fame, as Hollywood teaches, is never without strings, and the media had already set a trap. In the modern entertainment landscape, visibility is currency, and the platforms that boost a star's profile can also distort it. Every interview, every photo, every casual comment is filtered, spun, or sensationalized. For Sydney, the media spotlight was double-edged. It amplified her successes but also magnified her mistakes, creating a narrative that was only partially true. Headlines didn't always reflect reality. They reflected what would get clicks, shares, and trending status. The internet thrives on simplified stories. Complex nuance is lost. Sydney's candid discussions about money, fame, and pressure were turned into bite-sized quotes, stripped of context. Social media users debated motives, speculated on personality traits, and projected their expectations onto her. Suddenly, the actress who once faced obscurity now had her every decision judged publicly, often before she had the chance to fully explain herself. This is the reality of fame in the 21st century. It is not just earned, it is manufactured. Public perception is carefully curated by PR teams, viral algorithms, and media cycles. Even the most authentic moments can be reframed. A casual smile on a red carpet can be labelled arrogance. A thoughtful interview can be misinterpreted as controversy. Sydney quickly learned that controlling her narrative meant more than performing well on screen. It meant anticipating how every action might be received, edited, or misrepresented. The fame trap is psychological as well as professional. Fans expect constant access and immediate responses. Every role becomes a statement, every social media post a headline. The pressure can be exhausting, especially when personal identity is constantly conflated with public image. Sydney's story demonstrates how quickly admiration can shift into obsession, how praise can become scrutiny, and how opportunities can transform into expectations that feel impossible to satisfy. Yet, Sydney has navigated this terrain with strategy. She has used her platform to highlight issues like inequity in Hollywood and the pressures young actors face, turning potential pitfalls into moments of agency. She has been deliberate about her social media presence, the roles she chooses, and the stories she tells about herself. It's a delicate balance, maintaining authenticity while avoiding the traps of overexposure. For US audiences, Sydney's experience is a mirror of the broader culture of celebrity. We are fascinated by fame, obsessed with the lives of stars, and quick to form judgments without understanding the complexity behind them. Sydney Sweeney's journey illustrates both the allure and danger of modern stardom, revealing how fame can create opportunity, obsession, and ultimately, a trap that only the most self-aware actors can navigate successfully. As we move forward in her story, it becomes clear that Sydney's success is not only about talent or beauty, it's about understanding the machinery of fame itself, learning to operate within it, and finding ways to survive without losing oneself in the process. By now, Sydney Sweeney is more than just an actress. She is a reflection, a mirror of how modern American culture consumes, elevates, and obsesses over fame. The fascination with her is not unique. It is a symptom of a society that scrutinizes celebrities as if their lives exist for public judgment. From the early days of small roles to the explosion of Euphoria, Sydney's journey has been followed, dissected, and debated at every turn. But why are audiences so obsessed? Part of it is her talent, undeniable and versatile. Part of it is her relatability. The fact that she has struggled, worked hard, and still faced rejection resonates with viewers. And part of it is the internet itself. Social media accelerates obsession, transforming personal moments into public content and narratives into discussion threads that spiral endlessly. What Sydney represents is larger than herself. She is a case study in how fame interacts with culture, technology, and audience expectation. Her performances are celebrated, criticised, and memed all at once. Her body, voice, and even silence are analysed online. People feel ownership over her image, as if understanding her private life grants insight into the broader industry, society, or even themselves. And in that sense, Sydney Sweeney becomes more than a person. She becomes a symbol of a system built on obsession. This obsession has real consequences. For the actress, it creates pressure to constantly perform, to maintain a perfect image, and to navigate criticism that can feel personal, even when it's not. The media amplifies this dynamic, rewarding clicks over accuracy, headlines over nuance. Fans, critics, and casual viewers all participate in the cycle, feeding an appetite for celebrity that never sleeps. Yet Sydney has shown resilience in the face of this scrutiny. By taking control of her career choices, selectively engaging with social media, and expanding her creative role in Hollywood, she has begun to reclaim agency over her narrative. She demonstrates that fame need not be a passive trap. It can be navigated strategically, with awareness and intention. For American audiences, the obsession with Sydney Sweeney is instructive. It forces reflection on our own relationship with celebrity culture, the ways we consume media, and the lines we draw between admiration, critique, and intrusion. Her story highlights both the allure and the danger of fame, revealing how the very thing that elevates someone can also confine them. Sydney's journey is ongoing. Every role, every interview, every public appearance is a chapter in a larger story about talent, perception, and cultural obsession. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: our fascination with stars like Sydney Sweeney is less about them and more about us, about our hunger for connection, entertainment, and narratives we can control or debate. In understanding Sydney, we understand the audience itself, and in that reflection we see the complex, sometimes uncomfortable truth behind fame in America today. Sydney Sweeney's story is more than a tale of fame and talent. It is a mirror, reflecting the complexities of modern celebrity, the power of social media, and the obsessions of American culture itself. From her early struggles in a small Washington town to the explosive impact of Euphoria, Sydney has faced scrutiny, doubt, and the relentless pressure of public perception. Yet she has navigated it all with strategy, resilience, and an awareness few young stars possess. The obsession surrounding Sydney is not just about her acting, her beauty, or even her career choices. It's about the way audiences engage with fame. We consume, dissect, and debate every moment of her life, often forgetting that there is a person behind the headlines. Every viral clip, every meme, every comment fuels a cycle that elevates and confines simultaneously. Sydney's journey demonstrates that being talented is only part of the equation. Surviving the scrutiny and reclaiming control over one's narrative is what defines longevity in Hollywood. Her career evolution, from emotional dramatic roles to rom-coms, from actor to producer, reveals a crucial truth: fame does not have to be a trap. It can be managed, shaped, and leveraged when combined with intelligence, awareness, and strategic choices. Sydney is not just a performer. She is a case study in modern celebrity, showing us how to navigate attention without losing oneself. But there's a lesson beyond Hollywood. Our fascination with Sydney tells us something about ourselves. We are drawn to stories of struggle, triumph, beauty, and controversy. We crave narratives that allow us to judge, celebrate, or empathise, and in the process, we shape the very culture that creates obsession. The Sydney Sweeney phenomenon is not just hers, it's ours, a reflection of our curiosity, our judgment, and our collective fascination with fame. In the end, the question isn't whether Sydney deserves the attention. She does, for her talent, her resilience, and her strategic brilliance. The real question is, what does our obsession with her reveal about the culture we live in? And as long as we continue to fixate, dissect, and debate, Sydney Sweeney will remain not only a star on screen, but a mirror to all of us, a symbol of fame, scrutiny, and the modern American obsession.